entire world's attention is focused on New York City, 3 hours away in Owego, New York, another tragedy is unfolding. A mother of 4 vanishes into the night.
I know she would never have left her children. They were the most important things in her life.
And the folks around town are whispering murder.
He was the wealthy husband and she was the wife.
But nothing is as it seems in this small town.
They said somebody else abducted Michelle Harris from the end of the driveway.
Did the husband do it? Or is there a murderer amongst them?
We had very little physical evidence, and we had a lot of circumstantial evidence.
How well do you know your neighbors? What lies behind the white picket fences? Nestled up against the Finger Lakes and rolling hills of upstate New York is the town of Owego.
It's a nice place to raise a family. We have good schools, good, healthy living for the most part, and friendly people.
It's the kind of homey place that people can never quite seem to leave.
A lot of people live here for their entire lives. Basically, everybody knows someone. It's really a 6 degrees of separation thing.
So it was only a matter of time before a young Michelle Taylor and Calvin Harris's paths would eventually cross. Growing up in nearby Tioga Center, Michelle Taylor was the apple of her father, Gary Taylor's eye.
She was a good daughter, fun-loving. She was everybody's friend and was easy to get along with. She could find some humor in about anything.
And his daughter's good looks immediately caught Calvin Harris's attention when Michelle took a job at one of the Harris family's car dealerships.
She'd just gotten out of college and got a job at the dealership, and Cal was manager, and she was a cute little girl, and I'm sure he noticed her.
And notice her, he did. After a whirlwind romance, he and Michelle made it official. Michelle's sister-in-law, Shannon Taylor, remembers when love was in the air.
They really seemed to be so in love. They would look at each other with a way that you just knew they were really happy. They were gonna be together forever.
I think they truly loved each other, and I think, it was just like a match made in heaven.
The couple settled into a big house on Empire Lake, and 4 children soon followed.
Oh, it was perfect. They had their own lake all summer long. We'd have picnics, and they'd fish, jet ski, and swim. It was just incredible. Just an incredible life.
But that incredible life abruptly ends on September 11th, 2001, when all eyes are focused on New York City. Along with the rest of the world, WEBO radio news director Chris Schmidt is caught up in the chaos following the terrorist attacks.
Things were very crazy. It was really a mood of, I can't believe that just happened in New York City, and what can we do to help? Because we're only about 3.5 hours away from them.
And the investigators at the Owego branch of the New York State Police are on standby to help out their fellow New Yorkers at Ground Zero.
We were still concerned over what was going on in New York City with the attacks, but it was a general work day.
Duty soon calls for investigator Mike Myers, but not in Lower Manhattan. No, investigator Myers gets the call right here, in his own backyard, Tioga County.
In the early morning on the 12th, we received the report of Michelle Harris missing.
The report states that Michelle Harris, the devoted mother of 4, never came home on the evening of September 11th. And her family is worried sick.
Oh, she would never have left her children. She was a good mother. You know, they were the most important things in her life, so I knew it was serious.
Investigator Myers makes his way to the Harris house. He assumes, like most missing person cases, this one will most likely work itself out. Still, it's his job to investigate.
I knew immediately when we got the report who we were talking about. Cal Harris was pretty well known in the community because he had a Ford dealership in Owego. Everybody knew who he was.
After arriving at the couple's home, Myers begins his investigation.
When I spoke to Mr. Harris, he was pretty much non-emotional about everything. He didn't seem panicked or upset or concerned where Michelle was. He would just give us the facts.
Mr. Harris's tone strikes Myers as odd, but the investigator isn't jumping to any conclusions, especially since Michelle Harris has only been missing a few hours.
I didn't have any great opinions of the way he was acting. Everybody's different, and some people just handle it different ways.
Investigator Myers does a quick walkthrough of the Harris home, looking for clues that might shed some light on Michelle's disappearance.
Mr. Harris gave us full reign of the residence. We could look through any room. We were looking for any type of disturbance, just anything that would look out of place that might have some sort of meaning as to where the person is or was headed at the time. When I went through the residence, it seemed very well kept. Everything seemed to be in its place.
With no signs of foul play, there's not much more Investigator Myers can do. Perhaps Mrs. Harris just needed to clear her head. After all, the events of the previous day are taking an emotional toll on everyone.
When I left the Harris house, I felt that there was a good chance that Michelle Harris was going to return in the next hour or two, and that would be the end of the missing persons case.
But it isn't. When another day passes with no sign of Michelle, her disappearance is looking more and more suspicious. It's time to take a second look around the Harris home. And this time, the New York State Police are bringing in reinforcement. Senior investigator Steve Anderson isn't a TV forensics guy. He's the real thing, and he takes his job very seriously.
I'm not there to interact with people. I'm there to look for stuff.
He's a methodical investigator with a keen eye for things that other folks might miss.
With any missing person, you have to look at all the possibilities, indicators of foul play, signs of an altercations.
And it doesn't take long before Anderson's keen eye catches signs of something suspicious.
And upon entering into the garage and walking towards the door that leads to the rest of the house and enters into the kitchen, I observed some dried stains on the wall of the garage, which appeared to me to be blood.
And it's not just in the garage.
I then entered into the kitchen area from the garage, and looking immediately inside there, I noticed some blood on the door molding, on the molding to the floor, and on the tile floor itself.
But perhaps what's most disturbing to Anderson is a haphazard attempt at scrubbing the area.
The wispiness of some of the stains here. Some of the blood stains did appear to have been cleaned up, or partially cleaned up, showing that something was added to the blood to make it more translucent.
For Investigator Anderson, it all points to one thing.
The finding of the blood in the house and evidence of cleanup, that would be indicative of an event and a potential crime scene being in the residence.
It's not boding well for Calvin Harris. And things are about to get worse when investigators learn trouble was brewing in the Harris home.
She suspected that Cal was having an affair. Her whole marriage had been wrong, that it hadn't been right.
The question is, wrong enough to commit cold-blooded murder?
Cloudy, cool, and breezy, highs in the 60s today. Your news now, Southern Tier 4.
WEBO radio news director Chris Schmidt has reported on a lot of the big news in Owego. A ruckus at a town meeting, a barking dog, a rowdy neighbor. And on any other day besides September 12, 2001, the disappearance of a local woman would be the top story.
People knew of the Michelle Harris disappearance. They might not have been able to process it because of everything that was happening in New York City after September 11th. but they knew that she was missing. They knew that she was the wife of Cal Harris.
And everyone knows the husband is always the first suspect in a missing persons case. The police just might have to agree, especially when the blood discovered in the house turns out to be Michelle's. Senior investigator Susan Mulvey is an old-school cop. It's just the facts, ma'am. Or in Mulvey's case, evidence.
Once Steve Anderson found the blood spatter evidence, that changed the complexion of the case.
The blood looks pretty bad, but there's no body to speak of. Mulvey orders an extensive search of the area surrounding the Harris home, looking for Michelle or any trace of what might have happened to her.
We had many, many people and volunteers doing foot searches of the land that they own. It's a huge area, very wild. We brought divers in to their private lake. We brought in cadaver dogs and search dogs, and we couldn't find anything.
If Calvin Harris did kill Michelle in the house, he's done a good job disposing of her body. And without a body, police have an uphill battle ahead. Still, it's not looking good for Calvin when police get a glimpse of the couple's relationship.
Michelle suspected that Cal was having an affair. The little things had come up that just didn't seem to fit. She started taking a different view on her relationship. Her whole marriage had been wrong, that it hadn't been right.
Funny thing about affairs, they have a way of breaking up marriages. Even Calvin himself admits to police the relationship was going south.
From talking to Mr. Harris, he said that she pretty much lived her own life and he lived his own life. They haven't slept together in the same room for about 10 months.
Michelle had filed for divorce, but decided to remain in the couple's lakefront home with her children. They agreed to share the house and the kids, but not each other's lives. Police theorize perhaps Calvin didn't want to share anymore.
It was a frustrating case. We had very little physical evidence, and we had a lot of circumstantial evidence.
With an investigation heating up against one of Owego's best-known residents, District Attorney Gerald Keene joins the case.
Well, we work very closely with D.A. Keene on everything that we do, but he was a part of the case right from the beginning.
With 17 marathons under his belt, D.A. Keene knows what it takes to go the distance.
There was no body, there was no murder weapon, there was no confession. All we had was a lot of circumstantial evidence.
Of course, it doesn't hurt when some of that evidence is blood.
There's no good way for that blood to be deposited there.
But investigators are getting ahead of themselves. Calvin Harris can explain away the incriminating blood evidence.
Mrs. Harris had a car accident in April of 2001. In the middle of the night, came in holding something to her nose, either a Kleenex or a paper towel or something that was bloody. She had bled in the garage and in the kitchen on her way into the house.
It sounds like a pretty convenient explanation, but Calvin Harris has a police report to back it up. Calvin Harris is in the clear, at least for now. What's less clear are Michelle's whereabouts the night she disappeared.
We're just going step by step, trying to learn all the information we can about the people involved and what their normal course of business might be.
And police soon find out Michelle's normal course of business was working as a waitress across town.
She started being a waitress at Lefty's down in the village of Waverly to bring in some money for herself.
She decided that she needed a job. She figured that with her scheduling as a waitress would work out perfect because then Cal could be home in the evening to be there with the kids. It was a great outlet for her, but more than that, it supplied a financial need.
Lefty's owner, Tommy DeLuisio, takes pride in running a wholesome establishment. Lefty's is a down-home family place with a personal touch.
People came to Lefty's because it was basically value received in how they were treated. We had a lot of repeat business. Folks walked in and they knew what table they liked to sit at. They knew their drinks before they ordered.
And Michelle Harris was one of DeLuisio's star employees.
She did her job above and beyond. She was affable and friendly with my customers, with my staff. If I had 10 of her, I could rule the restaurant world.
DeLuisio and his waitstaff are able to fill in some of the investigators' blanks.
We learned that on the afternoon of September 11th, she went to work in the afternoon, completed her shift. I think the restaurant closed around 9. She had a drink at the bar with some of the kitchen workers at the restaurant. The last they saw her was in the parking lot.
But what they find out next changes everything.
They went home, and then she went to her boyfriend's apartment.
Boyfriend? Turns out Calvin wasn't the only one involved in an extramarital romance.
At the time that Michelle disappeared, she was dating a guy by the name of Brian, and he was the last person to have seen Michelle.
We wanted to take a little bit harder look at him and what their relationship was.
Could this other man have had other plans for Michelle?
When we discovered that information, we were very concerned that this might be an explanation as far as what had happened to Michelle.
But that's not the only secret hiding behind closed doors in this town.
Some of the employees at Lefty's had some unusual backgrounds.
Michelle Harris, dedicated mother of 4, has vanished. Vanished from her home, from her life on a beautiful patch of semi-wild seclusion in Tioga County, New York. Not to be heard from for over 2 weeks. The New York State Police are thinking the worst, and the worst doesn't usually happen around here.
Something bad has happened to her. She would not willingly be away from her children like that without making some arrangements, or, she wouldn't just not come home. Something catastrophic has happened to her.
So when senior investigator Susan Mulvey and her no-nonsense team discover Michelle Harris has been getting serious with a man named Brian, his name jumps to the top of the suspect list.
So being the last person to see her, the police were interested in knowing as much as they could about what happened during the time that they were together.
The boyfriend insists Michelle was alive and well the last time he saw her.
According to Brian, she was there at his apartment for approximately an hour or an hour and a half. They spent that time talking to each other about the events of September 11th. At about 11 o'clock or 11:15, Mrs. Harris left Brian, and that was the last time he saw her.
It's a nice story, but can he prove it?
He made himself available anytime we wanted to talk to him. He provided DNA samples. After talking to Brian, he rested our suspicions somewhat.
Somewhat, but not entirely.
He agreed to take part in a polygraph examination and passed the polygraph.
Turns out, the other man isn't anything other than a decent, honest guy who's all torn up about the disappearance of the love of his life.
What they found about Brian was that he was very emotional as far as teary and very concerned about Michelle, willing to do anything to help the police with their investigation.
So if it's not the boyfriend, not the husband, who else might be responsible for Michelle's disappearance? Investigators start running down the list.
We looked at everybody surrounding her, looked at who may have made threats towards her, who she may have voiced fears or concerns about.
And there are 2 employees at Lefty's that raise big concerns with police, both of whom just happened to share a drink with Michelle the night she disappeared.
When we looked at the workers at the restaurant, some of them had brushes with the law in the past and criminal histories.
As Lefty's line cook, Alex Holden was usually hidden behind Lefty's kitchen door. An unassuming guy, hidden from view, but also hidden, is a violent criminal record.
When we did a background check on him, we found that he had been convicted of a crime in Arizona and did a 10-year prison sentence in Arizona. And it was a violent crime against a female. So obviously we wanted to take a little bit harder look at him.
A history of violence towards women? Maybe history has repeated itself. There's only one way to find out.
We spoke to him, and we spoke with his girlfriend, who provided an alibi for the entire night of 9/11 over to 9/12. That he was home with her the entire night, and he was very cooperative, provided DNA, and would talk to us anytime we wanted to talk to him.
With Alex Holden in the clear, police focus on the other man that night, Michael Akers. Akers' criminal record may be cleaner, but he's also holding a secret.
Michael had a sexual relationship with Michelle.
A relationship that just happened to be going on at the same time as Michelle's relationship with Brian. Cheating on the other man with another man? Jealousy between lovers may have been too much for Michael Akers to stand.
When I talked to Michael, he immediately told me that he had had a sexual relationship with Michelle for about 6 weeks. But he said he never saw her socially or went to any bars with her, has never been to her residence, didn't know where she lived.
Akers insists it was just a casual fling, no strings attached. And after several rounds of questioning, his story checks out.
They had some brief relationship, and it ended on friendly terms, without any problems or any animosity towards each other.
All of Michelle's coworkers are crossed off the suspect list.
I personally didn't have any concerns over either one of the gentlemen in question. I didn't think anybody in Lefty's was capable of having anything to do with Michelle's disappearance.
Investigators are in a pickle. No body, no suspects, no evidence of a crime, maybe no murder. Despite what everyone says, perhaps there is a chance Michelle Harris simply ran away from her complicated life. And it certainly seemed complicated. If she's alive, there'd be a paper trail. Nobody goes off the grid completely.
We worked with the Secret Service to look at her Social Security number to see if it was used anywhere. We looked at her credit card history to see if they came up anywhere. We tried to track her jewelry that she had, and we weren't able to find anything through those efforts.
All roads seem to lead to one thing. Michelle Harris is not missing. She's dead. But with no body or new leads, the case stalls.
We've heard a lot of rumors. Some of them are far-fetched, some of them maybe possibilities, but with all the information that came in, we followed up every lead on tips and things, and it just didn't get us any closer to finding Michelle.
Still, despite the passage of time, Michelle's father desperately clings to hope.
From the time that Michelle disappeared, I still kept hoping or thinking that maybe the phone will ring or the door will open and Michelle will walk in.
But she doesn't. Almost 2 years pass with no sign of Michelle Harris, dead or alive. So police decide to take a closer look at who just might benefit from her untimely death.
We were able to eliminate the extra people in her life. Once you parsed everything else out, what we were left with was Calvin Harris.
Problem is, Calvin has had an answer for everything. But police soon uncover one thing he can't talk his way out of.
We learned that she was terrified of Calvin due to threats that he had made to her.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
There was a pattern of his treatment of women.
The FBI says one man has committed 13 different robberies in the southern tier.
As news director, it's WEBO Radio Chris Schmidt's job to wade through all the speculation and innuendo and report the facts. And in the town of Owego, New York, there's no shortage of rumors and innuendo about what happened to Michelle Harris.
I think there were some people that from the start believed that Cal had something to do with Michelle's disappearance. And I think that more people started to form that opinion as weeks turned into months, turned into years of no one hearing from her.
It's a sentiment that Michelle's family seems to share.
The thought that Cal could murder Michelle, I think we just knew there was no other alternative.
And after 2 long years, with no sign of Michelle Harris, investigators take a harder look at the one person who might gain from her disappearance, Calvin Harris.
There was a divorce that was going on at the time.
Like any divorce, Calvin stood to lose at least some of his assets. But when police learn how much, they realize that Calvin Harris has a million reasons to want his wife dead.
There was a lot of money at stake. Mr. Harris is a millionaire. She would get a share of all the assets that the Harrises had acquired during the course of their marriage.
And Michelle's divorce attorney was determining how much of those assets by demanding an appraisal of Calvin's car dealership.
They wanted to find out what these car dealerships were worth, which would have been a huge expense for Mr. Harris, and it would have opened kind of a Pandora's box as far as all of his finances and his business dealings.
But it's not just about the money. Like most divorces, Calvin Harris was in jeopardy of losing custody of his kids.
Mrs. Harris was represented by a hard-driving attorney that was demanding that Mrs. Harris would receive custody of the children.
For the prosecution, it all adds up to a boatload of motive.
By killing his wife, he stopped the divorce proceeding. He kept his children. He just regained control of everything.
The upcoming divorce looked like it would take a shocking toll on Calvin's life. More shocking, though, is what some of Calvin's old flames have to say.
We learned there was a pattern of his treatment of women.
There was a girlfriend that he had been physically abusive to when he was in high school. He had been physically abusive to his first wife. He was married for less than a year once before the marriage to Michelle Harris.
A man with a temper, on the verge of losing it all. People have been killed for less. And when investigators start putting the screws on Calvin's family, the image of the picture-perfect marriage is shattered forever.
Well, we had reached out to talk to his family, his brothers, his sisters-in-law.
At first, Calvin's family is reluctant to talk. But finally, Calvin's sister-in-law comes clean with some pretty damning information.
Michelle had called her when she was having a fight with Cal at their marital home. And she had locked herself in a closet and was on the phone to the sister-in-law while Cal was racking a shotgun right outside the door. And she was trying to reach out to her sister-in-law for help during that event.
But the stories don't stop there.
Mr. Harris had made some threats to Michelle. What he had said to her was that he wouldn't need a gun to kill her, that if he did kill her, her body would never be found.
It's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but investigators will need more to nail this guy once and for all. So police return to the only physical evidence in the case, the tiny drops of blood found in the Harris home.
This wasn't like some murder cases. We had a limited amount of blood, but it wasn't a really bloody crime scene.
Calvin explains it away with his accident story. But now D.A. Keene is sure it's just that, a story.
What Mr. Harris tried to do was create an incident where Mrs. Harris was bleeding and give that as an explanation for how the blood got into the garage and the kitchen.
Blood on the floor, blood on the walls, evidence of a cleanup. It doesn't take a forensics expert to put the pieces together, but it'll take one to prove it. And that's exactly what Steve Anderson does. He believes there's no way that the blood dripped onto any of those surfaces from a bloody nose.
Some force had to be applied to the blood to break it up into smaller droplets and for it to be propelled horizontally through the air, striking the vertical surface of the door and of the door molding.
Force in the form of a direct hit to the head, and not a simple bloody nose.
And you could try to innocently explain some of the blood stains present in the house. But when you look at the blood quantity and the blood stains we had as a whole, both in the kitchen and then in the garage, that's indicative of the crime scene and an event having occurred in the house.
An event that ended in murder. And for the prosecution, it all boils down to this.
When Michelle Harris came home on the night of September 11th, Mr. Harris killed her and took advantage of a perfect opportunity because the attention of the entire country was really focused on what had happened in New York City that day.
4 years after Michelle Harris first went missing from her home, Calvin Harris is arrested for second-degree murder.
When Cal was arrested, I thought it was a long time overdue, and I'm glad that they finally had enough evidence that they acted on it.
In May of 2007, the case against Calvin Harris goes to court.
I felt like there was ample evidence there to believe that this guy murdered his wife. Even though it wasn't a really strong case, I thought that there was enough evidence there to present it to 12 jurors and let them make the decision.
The prosecution's case is thoughtful and thorough. Michelle Harris isn't missing. She was murdered. And there's only one person with motive, means, and opportunity: Calvin Harris. And they argue it all happened in the wake of 9/11.
She left her boyfriend's house at about 11 o'clock. She made the 20-minute drive home to her house. I think she went through the garage door, and as soon as she got through the garage door, she was struck by Mr. Harris with something. She was knocked down. I believe that that's the reason why there's blood on the door. Once he got her incapacitated, I think he then took her out into the garage to finish killing her. He got rid of her body, cleaned up the blood.
Lucky for the prosecution, Mr. Harris missed a few spots.
I had presented all of the evidence effectively. I felt pretty good about the case.
And so does the jury. On June 7th, 2007, Calvin Harris is convicted of murder in the second degree.
It's a feeling of relief when the jury announces the verdict. You don't cheer or you don't say anything. You just have this tremendous feeling of relief.
For Keene, it looks like he's finally made it to the finish line. That is, until a surprise witness comes forward before the sentencing phase and blows the lid off the prosecution's entire case.
Apparently, about an hour after the jury had reached their verdict, a man called one of the defense attorneys to tell the defense attorney that he had supposedly seen something at the end of the Harris's driveway 6 years before.
And what this surprise witness says just might prove that Calvin Harris is an innocent man.
The witness claimed that he saw Michelle Harris arguing with someone that did not look like Calvin Harris. and that the young man looked like he was angry.
Does the prosecution have it all wrong?
Mr. Harris was released from jail. I was completely just feeling deflated and destroyed and just not ready to try this case a second time.
For the town of Owego, New York, Calvin Harris's murder trial is one for the record books.
It is a very contentious issue here in Tioga County, and people are very polarized. It seems like either you believe that Cal had something to do with Michelle's disappearance, or you believe that he's innocent, and there really isn't a middle ground.
And all the hoopla surrounding the trial reminds Lefty's owner, Tommy DeLuisio, of something you'd see on TV.
Everybody had their own theory. Everybody was watching too much Law and Order.
And those theories reach fever pitch when the defense says they have a witness that proves Calvin Harris is wrongly accused.
You know, the morning of September 12th of 2001, the witness claimed that he was hauling a load of hay down the road and past the end of the Harris's driveway, and that he saw Michelle Harris arguing with someone that did not look like Calvin Harris. He said that he could tell that Michelle Harris was upset and that the young man looked like he was angry.
This sighting suggests this mystery man might be the real perpetrator.
So the defense's argument was somebody else abducted Michelle Harris from the end of the driveway. That's why her body was never found.
But D.A. Keene isn't buying it.
Mr. Harris is the only feasible, logical, likely person responsible for Mrs. Harris's death.
Despite this witness's explosive account, he's still convinced Calvin Harris is guilty of murder.
When I first heard that the witness had supposedly seen something 6 years before in the morning that Mrs. Harris disappeared, my reaction was that it was ridiculous, that why would anyone who lives in this community, who would have seen all the publicity that this case got, wait 6 years to come forward with information about this case.
But the judge doesn't think it's so ridiculous. He sets the verdict aside, and Calvin Harris is a free man.
Mr. Harris was released from jail and allowed to be out of jail on bail. I was completely just feeling deflated and destroyed.
And Keene's not the only one. For Michelle's family, it's devastating news.
Would you vote for something different?
Naturally. Excuse me.
We were all pretty numb about the whole situation, and I mean, what can you do? You can't go ballistic, so I mean, we were just waiting and hoping that the state police and the DA could get through this step.
And D.A. Keene isn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. He has police review every word of the witness's account, and what they find makes a dubious story sound downright suspicious.
We didn't think it was credible. It was completely dark on this road at 5:30 in the morning. We had state police investigators go up there, and it was pitch dark up there at 5:30 in the morning.
Bottom line, the prosecution says the conditions were too dark to see all the details the witness claims to have seen. So what does this man have to gain by coming forward with his supposed sighting after 6 long years?
The witness made a remark to his wife that he wouldn't be surprised if some morning he found a bag full of money in his truck.
Keene argues the witness may not know Calvin Harris personally, but he knows a potential for a windfall when he sees one.
Michelle Harris is dead. Sometime during the night, Mr. Harris was a millionaire. Mr. Harris had a car dealership, so we argued to the court that there's some apparent financial motive here.
Confident they can discredit the defense's star witness on the stand, the prosecution is ready to face a jury again.
When I came into court for the second trial, I was feeling good about the case. We were feeling prepared. I felt like we had a really good chance of winning.
He believes they have the truth on their side.
Our case did not change much between the first trial and the second trial.
The evidence is the same, only this time, Keene's prepared to show that the witness's story has more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese.
I thought that the witness was completely destroyed as far as any credibility with the jury by the cross-examination that we were able to do on him.
It's looking promising, but it's still far from a slam dunk. And the residents attending the trial are split down the middle.
I think you could sense the tension in the courtroom between the Harris family, who didn't think Cal did anything wrong, to the Taylor family and the friends of the Taylors, who believed that Cal had something to do with Michelle's disappearance.
But that's for a jury to decide. And on August 5th, 2009, the jury finds Calvin Harris guilty of his wife's murder again. He is sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. He is currently planning an appeal.
When Mr. Harris was found guilty for the second time, I felt happy to have it over with, feeling that justice had been done.
For Michelle's family, they're pleased with the verdict, but there's something missing. Answers.
We still live in this limbo of not knowing what happened and not knowing where she is. So there's no satisfaction.
Still, there is some comfort in knowing, although she may not be coming home, her memory will live on.
We had a memorial stone made, and it's next to her mom's headstone. There's a phrase on there that says, "It's all right, that's all right." I mean, that's just how she was. You know, she just didn't get upset about things. I mean, things did not rile her. She was the one that made everything okay.
Life is quiet again on the streets of Owego, New York. But every once in a while, people still talk about the case that once rocked their small town.
To this day, I think if you went out and you talked to people in Tioga County and you asked them point blank, do you think Cal Harris murdered Michelle? Or do you think that she ran away of her own free accord? I think more people would tell you that they think that Cal Harris murdered Michelle Harris.
As for New York State Police investigators, Susan Mulvey and Michael Myers, well, they're still keeping an eye out for that final piece to officially close their case.
We always will have the case open to look for Michelle or any evidence that would lead us towards where she is buried or where she was disposed of. So that's always ongoing.
And District Attorney Gerald Keene now has more time on his hands, or feet, to train for his next marathon.